break down the difference between conservative media, like Fox News, and traditional mainstream journalism, like NBC News, it helps to look at their foundational goals. While both cover the same world events, they operate under different frameworks for handling facts, opinions, and audience expectations. Here is a breakdown of how they operate, how they separate fact from opinion, and how they inform their viewers. 1. Mainstream journalism versus conservative media. Mainstream journalism, e.g. NBC News. Traditional journalism is built on an information-first model. The goal is to gather verifiable facts, corroborate them with multiple sources, and present them with as much objectivity as possible. The framework. It relies on strict editorial standards, fact-checking desks, and a firewall between the reporting staff and the opinion writers. The audience approach. It aims for a broad, general audience. The underlying philosophy is to provide the raw data and context of an event, theoretically allowing the viewer to form their own conclusions. Conservative media, e.g. Fox News. Conservative media largely operates on an affirmation-first or viewpoint-explicit model. It emerged historically as a counterweight to what its founders perceived as a pervasive liberal bias in mainstream media. The framework. It views events through a specific ideological lens: conservatism, free markets, traditional values. While it covers breaking news, a massive portion of its identity and airtime is dedicated to analysis, commentary, and cultural critique. The audience approach. It targets a specific, loyal demographic. The goal is often to validate the viewer's worldview, contextualize the news within a conservative framework, and highlight stories that mainstream outlets might downplay. 2. How they handle facts versus opinion. Both networks use different mechanisms to signal to the viewer whether they are watching straight reporting or commentary. However, the line can get blurry, especially during primetime hours. NBC News, the church and state divide. NBC maintains a relatively strict separation between its hard news division and its opinion programming. Hard news, daytime and evenings. Programs like NBC Nightly News or daytime MSNBC reporting blocks focus on the trivium approach of answering the who, what, where, and when. The language is generally neutral, and anchors interview experts from various sides of an issue. Commentary, primetime/MSNBC. It is crucial to note that NBC Universal also owns MSNBC, which uses a progressive/liberal commentary model. During evening hours on MSNBC, the format shifts heavily toward opinion and analysis, using facts as a springboard to argue a specific political narrative. Fox News, the two networks model. Fox News essentially operates as two distinct entities under one roof: a small, aggressive hard news division and a massive, highly rated opinion empire. Hard news. Anchors like Bret Baier, Special Report, run traditional investigative and reporting blocks. They track down official sources, report from the field, and present standard news packages. Opinion. Primetime. Shows hosted by primetime personalities are explicitly opinion-driven. They do not claim to be neutral. Instead of just stating what happened, these hosts focus heavily on the why and the cultural implications, often framing stories as a battle of values or political ideology. 3. Rhetorical methods, how they inform viewers. To see how they touch upon true facts versus opinion, look at how the same set of facts is processed through their respective lenses. Feature, mainstream journalism, NBC. Conservative media, Fox. Selection of facts, agenda setting. Focuses on institutional updates, policy details, and mainstream cultural events. Focuses heavily on culture war topics, government overreach, border security, and perceived mainstream media hypocrisy. Use of language. Uses clinical, emotionally detached language, e.g., the legislation is facing opposition. Uses narrative-driven, emotionally resonant language, e.g., the radical agenda is facing a backlash. Handling of bias. Attempts to hide bias behind a veneer of institutional neutrality, though critics argue this leads to passive bias or blind spots. Embraces bias openly, arguing that being transparent about their worldview is more honest than pretending to have none. The truth-seeking challenge for the viewer. Both formats use true facts, but they use them differently. A hard news reporter uses facts to build a picture of an event. An opinion host uses facts as evidence to support a pre-existing thesis. For example, if inflation numbers come out, a journalist reports the percentage and the economic triggers. An opinion host, on either the left or the right, will immediately pivot to assigning political blame or praise, using the number to validate their overall narrative about the current administration. Ultimately, distinguishing fact from opinion requires looking at the grammar of the broadcast. Is the anchor telling you what happened, or are they telling you how you should feel about what happened? Spotting when you are being influenced by opinion, especially when it is cleverly packaged as facts, comes down to paying attention to rhetorical structure, emotional triggers, and linguistic choices. When a media outlet, a politician, or even a friend shifts from delivering raw data to shaping your worldview, they leave distinct clues. Here's how you can spot the shift from information to influence. 1. The language shifts from what to why and how to feel. The most reliable indicator is a shift in the grammar of the argument. Pure fact focuses on the grammar of a situation, the raw data, the timeline, the who, and the what. It is descriptive, e.g., the city council voted 5-4 to increase property taxes by 2%. Opinion/influence leaps immediately into the logic and rhetoric, the interpretation of motives, the future consequences, and the moral judgment. E.g., the city council just pickpocketed hardworking families to fund their bloated pet projects. If the words being used are doing the emotional heavy lifting for you, you are dealing with opinion. Watch out for loaded adjectives, disastrous, radical, unprecedented, courageous, that tell you how to feel about the fact before you've even processed it. 2. You feel a sudden spike in emotion, the hijack. Opinion-driven media operates on an affirmation and activation model. If a piece of media makes you feel a sudden surge of anger, fear, moral superiority, or vindication, it is likely designed to influence your opinion. The mechanism, fear and outrage, are highly addictive emotional states that drive engagement. The test, ask yourself, did this information make me smarter, or did it just make me mad? If it just made you mad, you are being fed a narrative curated to trigger that exact response, often by omitting complicating facts that might soften your anger. 3. The us versus them binary, the false dilemma. When you are being influenced by opinion, the world is rarely presented in shades of gray. Complex, systemic issues are reduced to a simple battle between two sides: right versus wrong, common sense versus foolishness, or heroes versus villains. If a commentator frames an issue as though there is only one logical moral conclusion, and that anyone who disagrees is either foolish, corrupt, or malicious, they are practicing rhetoric, not journalism. True facts usually reveal a messy collision of competing priorities, trade-offs, and unintended consequences. 4. The absence of counter-arguments or context. A major sign of being influenced is what is left out of the conversation. Steelmanning versus strawmanning. Does the presenter explain the opposing side's strongest, most rational argument? Or do they construct a weak, ridiculous version of the opposition, a straw man, just to knock it down? Context stripping. An opinion piece will often use a true fact but strip away the surrounding context to make it fit a narrative. For example, stating that a company laid off 500 people is a fact. Leaving out the fact that they simultaneously hired 2,000 people in a different department is an opinion by omission strategy designed to make you view the company negatively. 5. You notice the "I already knew that" feeling. One of the subtlest ways we are influenced is through confirmation bias. If you are reading or watching something and find yourself constantly nodding along, thinking, exactly, I knew it, you are likely consuming opinion media tailored specifically to your existing worldview. When media validates your pre-existing beliefs, your critical thinking guard drops. True objective facts are often inconvenient, messy, and force you to reevaluate what you think you know. A quick checklist for self-awareness. Next time you are consuming news, pause for a moment and ask these 3 questions. 1. Can I strip away the adjectives and still have a story? If you remove the emotional words and there is no substance left, it's 100% opinion. 2. What is the smartest counter-argument to what I am currently hearing? If the host isn't mentioning it, you have to find it yourself. 3. Why are they telling me this right now? Are they informing me of a breaking event? Or are they trying to get me to vote, donate, stay tuned through the commercial break, or pick a side?